Hey, what's good, everybody? It's Darren German here from McDonald Realty, and we're going to talk all about what's going on with Surrey real estate coming out of the month of April 2026. This is being filmed at the beginning of May 2026. To give you an idea, if you're somebody looking to maybe buy a home or somebody looking to maybe sell a home in the Surrey area, well, this is going to give you a really good idea of exactly what is happening with real estate values, where the market is trending, and otherwise. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. Now, when we talk about pricing in today's video, we're going to be using something called a benchmark value from what's called the home price index. Effectively what the home price index is it's something that tracks the value of a typical home. It's not a real home, it's considered a typical home. And it tracks the benchmark of that home for whether it kind of goes up or goes down. And it gets rid of all the outliers, all the one-off sales that would maybe skew the data. So we're going to consider this kind of like almost like what's happening with inflation. Like, is the inflation going up? Is it going down? And what is it looking like for what's happening with homes in that area? So before we jump into the actual Surrey homes, I want to show you guys the most recent release by the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board to put this into context a little bit. Because this was one of the very first months in a long time where we saw some positive news for almost everybody. So, what did it say? Well, in Surrey, BC, for the first time in more than a year, Fraser Valley home sales recorded a year over year increase, with activity also rising month over month as the spring market begins to show renewed activity. The Fraser Valley Real Estate Board recorded an 11% increase in sales from the month before and a 7% increase from the same month of last year. Now, that all being said, we're going into spring market. Maybe we're going to see a little bit more of a traditional spring market, whereas last year was anything but traditional. It was a terrible market last year, but the market still, generally speaking, is in a buyer's favor. So that's all well and good, but pretty interesting stuff coming out of the Fraser Valley camp. Now, when we look at home prices just generally across the entire Lower Mainland, the red line that you're seeing on your screen here represents a Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board, which is like Whistler down to Vancouver, the Tri-Cities, Richmond, Maple Ridge, all that sort of stuff. You can see at the very end there a little tiny uptick in values for most property types, or all property types, kind of thrown into a blender. Now, the blue line is Fraser Valley Board. That's where Surrey's located. It's North Delta all the way to kind of Abbotsford sort of thing. But you can see, if you look really, really closely, it looks like it ticked up a little bit as well. It kind of maybe looks a little flat on your screen if it's really small, which it might be if you're watching this on your phone. But we've seen some growth in property values, and it's been a while since we've seen that. So let's see exactly what's happening. Now, condominiums. We've got Wally, downtown, city center of Surrey. And this is really skewing a lot of the data, because if you pull that area out, it might not be the same story. But that said, it's still part of the story. So when we look at the sales to active ratio, how many homes are available versus how many of those homes are actually being removed from the market by buyers, people actually buying them, that tells us kind of where the market might be headed and whatnot. You can see that red line on the screen there. That kind of represents what's called a balanced market. There's no real advantage to anybody. And what you can see as well is we're kind of floating in around 11 to 12% for a sales to active ratio, meaning about 1 out of 9 properties that are going to the market in that area are actually transacting. And that still makes it really difficult and really challenging for a seller to transact, which naturally is going to have downward pressure on prices. So you can see the prices of condominiums in North Surrey, or sorry, Surrey generally, have continued to go down and down and down and down. Last month over month, they were down about $3,000, and year over year, they're down about $47,500. So this is clearly a market where the buyer has a huge advantage. Activity is proving to be stagnant in in that market, and we're in one of the more productive times, traditionally anyways, of the year. I mean, we can only tell if it's been productive in the rearview mirror when we look back at it. But there's a lot of other communities in the Lower Mainland, and especially kind of south of the Fraser River, where I transact real estate, generally speaking, that are performing quite well. This is one of the markets, Surrey, as a broad brush, condominiums, that's quite struggling. And it's not happening in condominiums all across the market. It's just really Surrey. Now, when I say that, it's important to note too, like when we say Surrey's huge. It's the 11th biggest municipality in Canada. So saying Surrey condos are all doing the same thing and painting them with this broad brush is really not overly appropriate either. There is sub areas So, as an example, Cloverdale is a smaller sub area of Surrey as a whole. And in Cloverdale, there's in fact sub areas like Clayton, as an example, which, Clayton condos versus condos in the Wally area are doing completely different things. So, it's really important to get that local information, that local insight when you're trying to understand this stuff, but trying to give you a little bit of an idea of what the market is doing, generally speaking. Uh, Rates, we're going to talk about rates in a moment, so I'm going to leave that for now. But if you're selling your Surrey condo, you still need to be ultra competitive. It is still a difficult market. If you think the price drops are stopping, well, unless you know something that I don't, based on what I'm seeing here, I don't think we're quite out of the woods yet. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be massive drops. I don't know, but we are going to have to watch that and see what actually transpires. Now, let's talk about townhomes here. Now, again, you can see that red line on the graph, and what that represents is townhomes are actually in a balanced market condition. Interestingly enough, that has also been reflected in the price, not 1 month, not 2 months, but 3 months in a row. Month over month, townhomes in Surrey are up $1,800. Now they're down about 67,500 over the last 12, which is incredible. But we've got increased activity and we've got increased prices 3 months in a row in this market. That is a market to me that's in the advantage of the seller. The activity might look balanced. That's certainly something that's true. But when you're seeing the price go up month over month over month, and it's not jumping like crazy, but people are starting to recover some of that lost equity from months previous. The equity that maybe has been eroded over the last 18 months are starting to gain a little bit of that back. This is always a fascinating market to me. If you watch this channel frequently and you watch these updates frequently, I always talk about how this is the missing middle. This is the perfect storm market for the generation, the millennial generation that is having families, has a family that needs space. They can't live in these one bedroom condos. They don't want to live in the two-bedroom basement suite anymore. They need space. They want to be close to schools, close to amenities, and it's affordable. It's still affordable for most families. So it's going to be continuing to be the market that is going to be in demand long into the future. And that's why you see these things getting built all over the place, because that's what people can afford, and it offers them the space and all the things that they want when they get a home. So it's going to be a fascinating market to watch. And interestingly enough, if you think about the prices increasing for townhomes, well, the people that are buying those townhomes are moving from the market, but the people that sold them are also now maybe coming out with a little more money than they expected. But that also being said, they also now have the ability to actually start buying a house if that's the move up for them, if they're trying to climb the property ladder. So look at detached homes. Look at the activity for detached homes. And detached homes in Surrey were coming out of a really nasty place. You can see at the start of the year, they were down at like 5% sales to active ratio. That means 1 out of 20 homes were actually transacting. That's a really difficult market for a seller, an impossible market. So, so difficult. But that number's been progressively climbing over the last few months. And now it's sitting in and around 11 to 12%, just like the condos were. Well, fascinating enough, we're not seeing the monstrous drops in value in these properties that we once were, because the activity's been improving. And if it continues to improve, the question is, well, where might that go? Look how flat it gets during the early parts of 2026 in terms of what's happened with price. So in the last month, a detached home has come down about $2,500. Guys, when we're talking about a detached home, we're talking about the benchmark price of a home that's, roughly $1.46 million. $2,500 is a blip on the radar. It is a decimal point because the market can flick either which way. That's not a big number. Now, year over year, they're down about 160,000. That's a much bigger blip. That's one to pay attention to. But when we look at what's been happening with prices and we look at the sales to active ratio improving month over month, the question is, well, where might that head? Now, this is still a market that is advantage to buyers. There's no doubt about it. There's lots of inventory out there. Just because the market's improving doesn't mean that it's improved. And there's still tons of inventory for buyers to choose from. So if you're a seller trying to get rid of your property, hope is not a strategy. We have climbed in price a few months in a row, which is certainly great. But the numbers, still based on the inventory, that kind of 1 out of 9 actually transacting, doesn't necessarily prove or show that the prices are going to keep improving. So you got to be very careful about holding out, holding your breath, hoping that the market's going to continue to improve. Prices are up, which is great. So, take that for what it is. Buyers, go put your offers out there. I mean, one thing that you certainly can't deny, if prices have been climbing even ever so slightly, if you're going to pay a little bit more for a home tomorrow than you might today, well, maybe you consider doing something with that information today. I don't know. Now, I promised to chat a little bit about mortgages. There's a lot of people that watch these videos that are just waiting for something. waiting for something. And oftentimes they're waiting for what's going to happen with mortgage rates. Well, we just had an announcement from the Bank of Canada where the mortgage rates yet again didn't move, something that we've been predicting for months and months on this channel. I'm not going to get into why they didn't move, but I am going to recommend that maybe if you are somebody in that camp, you start doing your own investigations as to the signaling the Bank of Canada does for what they think is going to happen with mortgage rates, why mortgage rates haven't moved, and why they are where they are. I'll leave it at that, and we'll maybe do another video on that. You can let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in that. Now, let's talk about a little bit about market drivers real quick, because these are the sorts of things that you need to pay attention to if you are trying to time the market. And hey, look, I don't like timing the market. If you're somebody selling your house looking to buy a house, you're buying in the same market conditions. If the tide goes low, all the boats, regardless of their size, go down. If the tide goes up, those same boats all go up. Doesn't really matter. But if you're somebody looking maybe to maximize the sale price of your home, or you're somebody looking to maybe jump into the market for the first time, just be very cautious about doing that. I always recommend it's more of a lifestyle choice than anything. If it makes sense financially, if it makes sense for where you are in your life or your family needs or your job, whatever that might be, pick because of that. Don't try and time the market. It's kind of gambling, right? We don't really know. But I'll always try to give you really good information on these videos so you have an idea of where the market might be headed. But let's talk about what really drives the market and things that you might want to pay attention to. Mortgage rates, we talked about, of course, economic shifts. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I'm just kind of wondering, we got wars in Iran, we got the gas prices, we got all the crazy tariff stuff going on. I often wonder how numb the market, how numb people are becoming to all the craziness that happens in the world. Seems like every year or two, there's another big event going on somewhere and something that's really substantial. And I look at the stock market as an example and what's going on. In the day of filming this, it's at record highs, ridiculous highs, which I'm trying to wrap my head around. I'm trying to understand why. Now, I'm not a stock expert. You're not here for stock tips, but the reason I bring that up is, are people just getting numb to all the crazy rhetoric that gets thrown around, and those that be that kind of run this world order? There's those that are participating and those that are not participating in the bigger conversation right now. But I'm just wondering how many people like you and I are becoming numb to all the rhetoric and just deciding to continue to live their lives and let all the noise just happen. I don't know. It's a fascinating one. Demand, we're in the spring market. That also kind of touches on seasonal trends. We know there's tons of demand out there. People have been sitting on the sidelines for a long, long time wanting to buy real estate. And it'll be interesting to see if they start to come off those sidelines. In fact, we have seen that with a lot of the activity rises that we talked about in today's video. Spring is typically the busiest market of the year, traditionally anyways. That wasn't the case last year. We will see if it is the case this year, but we can only know that looking in the rearview mirror. And local policy changes, I don't foresee a lot coming out by the BC government because of how down real estate has been over the last 18 months and how that affects their bottom line when it comes to one of the massive piggy banks that they get to dip into from property transfer tax when people buy real estate. They're probably going to be a little gentle on doing anything. They, in fact, introduced a ton of stuff in the last few years, but we really haven't seen how that actually affects the market because the market has been so depressed. When the market starts to improve, we're going to see how some of these kind of new things that they introduced are really going to affect the real estate market in practice when it's actually healthy. So that said, I don't think they're going to do anything in the next foreseeable future. So we'll have to see. And if they do, we'll report on it in this channel. Hey, look, I hope these videos are really valuable for you guys. In the comments below, let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. Let me know what you'd like to see more of. If there's something that can be improved, let me know. I'm always trying to bring you guys really good values so you can make really good decisions when it comes to your real estate decisions, whether you're looking to purchase something, whether you're looking to sell something, whether you're looking to do both. And if you're someone that maybe needs help in the community, whether you've got questions about real estate or you're thinking about doing a purchase or a sale, if you'd like to speak with me and my team, you can find us in the description of this video and book a time to connect, and we'll just make sure you got the information to set you off in the right spot. Don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss out on these monthly updates, and I hope this was great for you. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.